Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the first chapter of book Flamingo. And the chapter is the last lesson. Before we start anything, first talk about the writer, or you can say that author. So author is here Alphonse Daudet, and he was a French novelist and the short story writer. The last lesson, when it was written, it was set in the days of the Franco and Prussian War. Remember these two countries, France and Prussia, they were in war, and in which the France was defeated by Prussia, and result of that, the French districts Alsace and Lorraine have passed into Prussian hands. Remember these two uh, cities' name, Alsace and Lorraine. They were passed into Prussian hand as the result of the battle. And what will happen after that, we are going to study in the story. And before we start anything, first let's talk about the important characters in the story. So there are two important characters. The one is French. Yes, he's a school goer, and the another one is M. Hamel. He's a teacher in school where French studies. So here I'm going to narrate the story in a third person narrative technique. So here the word is used I at the first letter of the story. So that means the French, a school boy, he's narrating the story. So let's start the story. I started for school very late that morning. On particular morning when the story starts, this French started very late, and as a result of that, we know if we start late, we definitely reach late. So the French was in the great dread of scolding, the great dread of, in a great fear of scolding by Mr. Hamel. So because M. Hamel had said that he would question us on participles. So let me tell you the meaning of the word, the participles. Participles is the rules of grammar, right? So M. Hamel had said that he would question us is here all the school classroom student in French class, right? So he wanted to ask some questions about the participles, but he did not have the first word about them. So he had no idea about the participles. For a moment, I thought of running away. Who thought? French. French thought of running away from school and spending the day out of doors. That means he wanted to stay out of the school that particular day. There were two reasons. The one was that he was very late, the Hamel will scold, and another reason was that he was not interested in participles, right? And it was so warm outside, so bright, the birds were chirping. Chirping is a sound made by birds. So the birds were chirping at the edge of the woods is here forest. So near the forest the birds were chirping. And in the open field of the sawmill, saw is a kind of, you can say that, the device which is used for cutting the wood. So near there was a sawmill. So in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling here practice. So here the why the Prussian soldiers, because they won the battle, and now the Prussian soldiers were there in the places Alsace and Lorraine. It was all much more tempting. Tempting means that something tempts you, that something give you advantage, that is called tempt. So it was much tempting than the rule for participles, but he had the strength to resist here, oppose. So he opposed the feeling and he hurried off to school, and he went to school. When I passed, I is here the friends, remember. So when he passed the town hall, there was a crowd in the front of the bulletin board. Remember this word, the bulletin board. You kind of a notice board, where in the town hall. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The bad news we know, when the country is in a war, we can expect bad news. Most of the time we expect the bad news, and similar way the people of these two places were used to get the all information from the bulletin board, just like the news about the lost battles, drafts, orders of the commanding officers. So I thought to myself, who thought? The French thought to himself without stopping. So he was going towards school and he thought to himself that what can be the matter now? Where? At the bulletin board. So he was asking to himself, what can be the news this time? The people were standing there. Then I hurried. I is here French. Yes. As I hurried by as fast as he could. The blacksmith, the watcher who were there with his apprentice, a person who was there for training, that is called apprentice. So reading the bulletin, they were reading the bulletin and called after him and called French. What they said, don't go so fast. Bob is a boy. You will get to your school in plenty of time. That means you will have a lot of time to reach your school. So don't be in hurry. So he did not understand because he did not read the bulletin board, and as a result he went straight to the school, and I thought he was making fun of me, and reached M. Hamel's little garden all out of breath. All out of breath is here gasping. So he was running very fast and he reached the Hamel's little garden. And usually when the school began, remember, and there was a great bustle noise which could be heard out in street, the opening and closing of the desk, a lesson repeated in the unison in a single or in a one rhythm. So when usually we find when the school starts, there is a lot of noise in the school, very loud, our hands over the ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping is a tapping and hitting on the table. So generally these are the noise, and usually when the school starts, just like closing of the desk, lesson is repeated, or the teachers would be rapping on the table. But now it was all so still is here quiet, silence. I had counted on here, believe. I had counted on commotion is a noise, to get to my desk without being seen. Usually whenever the French was late in the classroom, so he had strong belief on the commotion, that in a noise he could easily sneak into his classroom and get his seat. But that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. But that particular day the morning was just like a Sunday morning. Remember this word, why it was a Sunday morning. Usually when we find on Sunday morning that no sound in the school, in the classroom, because nobody comes there, and that the same scenario was there on the particular day. There was no noise. Through the window I saw my classmate. Who saw? Yes, friends. Friends saw his classmates sitting there already in their places, and M. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. So this was the big question, and how to get inside the classroom. Today nobody was speaking, everything was still, quiet, silence there, and he had a problem to get inside, and everybody will face him, or he will have to face everybody. You can imagine how I blushed. Blushed is here become red. So he became red, right? Because maybe blush sometime by shyness, by embarrassed, right? By worried, or maybe some other reason. But here today he was late and he had to go to his desk, and so that's why he became red. And how frightened I was here a French, so friend was so frightened, so afraid. But nothing happened. M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, what he said, go to your place quickly, little French. So here's the name. We were beginning without you. So the Hamel was about to start the class without little French. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk, and no till then, when I had got a little over my fright is here fear. So got a little over my fright, when he felt relaxed, he felt a bit comfortable in the classroom. So did he see that? What he saw, that our teacher, his teacher M. Hamel, had on his beautiful green coat his frilled shirt. So on that particular day, the M. Hamel was wearing green coat, frilled shirt, and little black silk cap, all embroidered. Embroidery, we know, embroidery. Here is a verb, that is embroider. So they all were decorated, right, by embroidery, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. So usually Mr. Hamel used to wear this particular dress on, especially on the inspection and then prize days, but it was not the day of inspection and nor the prize. But besides, in addition to, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. Solemn is here strange. And that particular morning, everything was strange and solemn. But the thing that surprised me is here him, French. The thing that surprised him the most was to see on the back benches that were always empty. So usually the French used to find the benches empty at the back of the classroom, but that day, the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. Ourselves here, the students in the classroom. So they all were sitting like the students in the classroom. Old Hoser, with his three cornered hat, and former mayor and former postmaster. Former is a previous, and several others besides. So apart from these three, that old Hoser, the mayor, and the postmaster, many more were there in the classroom. They were sitting at the back of the class. So everybody looked sad. Why they were looking so sad? The Hauser had brought an old primer. So primer is here the basic book for the learner. So here the Hauser was having an old primer, the thumbed at the edges, and he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. So he was having the book on his knees, and the spectacles were there on the book. And while I was wondering, so when he was wondering about it all, and M. Hamel mounted his chair. Mounted is here sat. So he sat down in his chair, and in a same grave and gentle, grave is a serious, right, he was serious at that particular day, and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, my children. So what he said, my children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. Why was the last lesson today? The order has come from Berlin to teach the German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Very important line. Read it again. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in schools of Alsace and Lorraine. So before that, the French was being taught in the school, but today is the last day of the French, and the tomorrow onwards the German will be taught. The new master comes tomorrow. Here is the new master will come tomorrow, and this is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive. So what a thunderclap these words to me means here French. So why? Because oh, the wretches, that was what they had put up at the town hall. Now the picture is quite clear to French. That what was the news at the bulletin board? This was the news that the tomorrow onwards the German will be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, and that's why the people the sitting there at the back of the benches, and the Hamel was wearing that particular fine dress. My last French lesson. Why today is the last? I hardly knew how to write. So he had not learned properly how to write. I should never learn anymore. I must stop there. And then, oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lesson. So now the French is regretting for not learning his lessons. and he was much interested in seeking is getting the bird's egg, going sliding on the Sar is here river in France, remember. So he was much interested in seeking the bird's egg, sliding on the Sar and my books, and that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, and my grammar, my history of the saints were all friends, now that I couldn't give up. Now on the particular moment, and before that, just before the class started, the French was feeling burdened by the books, by the teacher, the books of the history, the grammar book, and they were all like a very heavy burden on his head. But now M. Hamel too, he was also a burden for French, because whatever he taught in the classroom, that was very hard to grasp. The idea that was going away, who? Hamel, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky. Cranky is here a kind of strange, mad he was. So before that, the M. Hamel was to him cranky, was strange, and when he got to know that he is going tomorrow and he won't be able to see him, and now the thing is changed for French. Poor man is here, who? M. Hamel. Why is poor man? It was in the honor of the last lesson that he had put up on his fine Sunday clothes. The poor man, because he is going from this place and the new teacher will take place, the new teacher will supersede him tomorrow, and that's why he has to go from here, and the French calling him poor man. So it was in the honor of this last lesson that M. Hamel was wearing the fine clothes on, put on his fine Sunday clothes. And now I understood. So here class, so this is the first part of the lesson, the last lesson. We will uh, cover the rest of the chapter in the next video, and thanks a lot for watching. Stay tuned.